In this video, we're going to cover what it is to play the Deadeye, the playstyles you can expect, and why you'd want to play this one over any of the other classes. The Deadeye is an advanced class that falls under the gunner. With low defenses, high mobility and close range, the Deadeye is the pinnacle of the high risk, high reward. Though the main thing that sets Deadeye apart from the other classes is his unique identity that he can use whatever he wants. It allows him to switch between 3 weapons using a total of 16 skills instead of only 8 normally. In other words, the real trick in choosing this class is to adapt between the strengths and weaknesses of your weapons and to use them correctly in all those different situations. So if you're looking for a class that is willing to take risks whilst dashing around the battlefield and one that uses all types of different guns, then Deadeye is the one for you. When it comes to your other advanced gunner classes, the Deadeye is the gunslinger's male counterpart, as they both share the same identity and the ability to swap guns. Although both of these classes are very similar, the Deadeye's dependency on close combat makes him ultimately the most difficult gunner in the game to play. When you're comparing the Deadeye to the artillerist, they play completely differently, and they're much more durable than the Deadeye. Due to having a lot more skills and mobility though, the Deadeye plays at a much faster pace than the artillerist. Compared to the sharpshooter plays at a much safer and reliable range, whereas the Deadeye requires to take much more risks at a closer range to maintain the similar type of DPS. That's because the majority of Deadeye's damage is locked behind hitting melee range shotgun skills, whilst being one of the most fragile classes in the game, which makes him the most risky advanced gunner class to play. As already stated, unlike other classes, Deadeyes do not have an identity meter, but more of an identity ability which they can use to swap between those 3 weapons. These are the handgun, the shotgun, and the rifle. As every weapon has strengths and weaknesses, you'll use them accordingly in different situations. In most cases, you're going to use those handguns as your default weapon with 8 skills. This gun and all of its skills provides the most utility and mobility out of all 3 weapons. Your shotgun though is your highest damage weapon, but it also has the shortest range. Unlike the handgun, you can only use 4 skills at a time. And lastly, you've got that rifle, which is your longest range weapon, but compared to your other guns, the damage of this weapon is actually fairly low. In PvE, Deadeyes are going to use their handguns to debuff enemies and then swap to other guns to cast their skills. Note that this is basically your pattern and rotation you want to just rinse and repeat, and that's also why you really need to pay attention to your positioning and timing to maximise your damage output, as Deadeyes really do need to stay close range most of the time. In PvP, Deadeyes are a squishy target, but exchange have high mobility and great damage combos. Deadeyes are fairly difficult to learn to play at first, but will be incredibly rewarding after mastering them. When the fight starts, you'll look to use your offensive stagger tools to engage and catch people before you combo into your hard CC. If you prefer to stay in the backline first though, you can also use your long range skills to help your teammates by catching enemies from a safer distance. But you've also got to take extra care when you don't have your stand up or any dash or mobility skills up, as being a very squishy gunner, you'll get yourself killed quickly if you're caught out. Let's take a look at those core abilities then and start off with Spiral Tracker. This is your synergy ability with a low cooldown that's performed pretty quickly and has decent range. It's important to use this skill whenever it's off cooldown, as its weakness exposure tripod allows you and your party to keep up a crit debuff at all times. Quick Shot is one of your main DPS skills that make you fire 2 shots, with the second shot dealing insane amounts of damage. You don't have to use both shots right after each other, but can simply use shot 1 and then reposition or use other abilities before firing that second hard hitter. The same thing goes for Cruel Tracker. This is another core DPS of the Deadeye that can also make you fire the handgun in 2 instances, with the second instance having a really good range as well as more damage too. Enforce Execution is mainly used as your counter, but it's also a good engage or repositioning tool. Dexterous Shot is another tool that can be used for everything in mobility, that also increases your attack speed when it's used. You can use this skill twice, so it's perfect when you need to reposition during those heated scenarios. As with all classes, the Deadeye has access to 2 awakening abilities. Clay Bombardment makes your Deadeye throw multiple explosives around him and then lets him shoot them down with his handguns to deal massive damage and knock up all hit opponents. Bursting Flare on the other hand makes you use a large rifle to fire multiple shots that deal huge damage to everyone hit directly. The last shot deals the most damage and even knocks back all targets hit. In terms of popularity, most people choose Clay Bombardment because it just does overall more damage compared to Bursting Flare. Every Lost Ark class has access to engravings that are going to focus your playstyle in one particular direction. For Deadeyes, you will choose between Enhanced Weapon and Pistolier. Enhanced Weapon gives you a big chunk of crit rate for a short duration whenever you swap weapons. To make sure you keep that crit buff up at all time though, you want to make sure you're constantly rotating between your 3 weapons. This engraving is the harder engraving to use, but you're going to be rewarded with some pretty high damage numbers if you can learn to smoothly swap weapons. When you choose this engraving though, you mainly want to focus on the specialization stat first, as it will boost your shotgun and your handgun damage. After that, you can choose between crit or swiftness as a secondary stat to build upon. The Pistolier engraving though disables the use of the shotgun and the rifle skills in order to drastically increase the damage of their handgun skills. If you run this engraving, your handgun will deal a lot more damage. It'll also do more stagger, and it even increases the damage of your awakening skill on top of that. Since the style of play of handgun skills are more dynamic than your other weapons, this engraving will automatically allow for a faster and more mobile gameplay experience. The stat priority of the Pistolier engraving follows the same pattern as the previous one, focusing on specialization mainly as it will boost your damage of your handgun skills, and then you can choose between crit or swiftness secondly. That should be everything that you need to know to get your journey started on Lost Ark. Don't forget to head on over to our website at mobalytics.gg to find out all sorts of other content including class guides, boss breakdowns and plenty more.